Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please recognize Representative Inman for a point of personal privilege.
Representative Inman, you are recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Madam Floor Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend House rules for the purpose of filing an untimely filed amendment to eliminate the capital gains exemption. Happy to take questions. Move adoption. No, can't we? It's out of order, I'm sure. That's all right. I was beginning to wonder whether we would get to this at all, but members, in 12 years, I've given hundreds of speeches and debates on this House floor, and I've never had any doubts or reservations about standing up and voicing my thoughts and opinions about whatever was the topic of the day. And while I enjoyed most of those moments, I fully realize that many of you, especially those of you on this side of the aisle, at times found it less than amusing. And in spite of my propensity to speak in the chambers, I must be quite honest, I wasn't exactly sure that I wanted to give a farewell address. Don't get me wrong, I've thought about it over the years, what I would say, how I would say it. But as the time approached and the circumstances of my life changed, it became ever clearer to me that giving this speech would be one of the most difficult speeches of my life. And so I was squarely on the fence as to whether I would do it at all. I had encouragement from many members in my caucus and the staff with whom I've worked with over the last number of years, but it wasn't until Leader Eccles approached me and that I made the final decision to give the speech today. You see, John came up to me and he asked me if I had intended to give a farewell address. I explained to him my reservations and my worries that I wouldn't be able to get through the speech without being overly emotional. But I was truly humbled by his request, and I was taken by the thoughtfulness of his ask. And just as he was about to walk away, I caught him and I said, "John, do you really want me to give another speech? I mean, do you honestly think your caucus wants to hear me speak again?" And without skipping a beat, John looked at me and said, "Oh no, they don't want to hear from you at all. They just want to make sure you're actually leaving." So let me say this to all of you over here, to paraphrase one of your heroes, no, not Art Laffer or Sean Hannity, but Richard Nixon. It's amazing how low of a bar those guys set to make Richard Nixon a hero, for the record. But to paraphrase Richard Nixon, you can rest at ease, you can put your mind at ease for just in a few short hours or maybe in a few months when we all get to come back together for special session 6.0, thanks to the educator's best friend, Tom Coburn. You know what? Let's just hope it's a few hours or maybe here in a day or so, you won't have Scott Inman to kick around anymore. And quite honestly, I'm looking forward to it. The 12 years have just flown by. It seems like only yesterday that Representative Proctor and I were standing right there at that desk where Representative Perryman and Representative Blanchett sit today, taking our first oath of office. It was an incredible experience and one that I will remember for the rest of my life. I dreamt of serving in the legislature and representing my hometown of Del City since I was a child in elementary school. And to have been able to achieve my dream as a young kid of just 28 was extraordinary. And while I remember some things about that day, one thing that I remember most vividly is looking up in the gallery and seeing my family, my wife Dessa and my parents John and Carolyn. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that the first time that we were sworn into this august body in this incredibly beautiful room, we experienced a personal pride unlike anything we've ever felt before. And I certainly felt it in that moment. But as a child, while most of us desire to take pride in what we do, there's just something extra special about making your parents proud of you. And I'll never forget the look on my father's face. This is going to take a lot longer than what I thought. I'll never forget the look on my father's face, a man of modest means who never dreamed his son would ever serve in the House of Representatives. When I looked up in the gallery on that day in November of 2006, and I saw his eyes filled with moisture, just like mine are right now, gazing down at me. I don't think he knew that I saw his emotion in that moment, but in that moment, I knew that my father had never been prouder of me. And it is my sincere wish that I and all of you who have been blessed to be called by God to be a parent will one day experience that kind of love and that kind of pride in your own children. But since that day, nearly 12 years ago, a lot has changed. I've experienced a multitude of highs and lows, fought some incredibly difficult battles, and had some amazingly good times. As I composed my notes for this speech, I wrestled with just exactly how to say goodbye. I thought about giving one more hellfire and brimstone speech on the failed fiscal policies of the last decade. But I thought, no, it hadn't worked to date, so it's probably not going to work now. Then I thought I could brag about how the House Democratic Caucus has grown in strength and numbers over the years, but thanks to you guys and every Oklahoma Republican's best friend, Barack Obama, I've watched my beloved caucus go from 44 to 28, so that's off too. And finally, I thought I would regale all of you with the incredible legislation that I've passed in the last 12 years, and then I quickly realized you guys killed most of that. Apparently discussing legislation to cover the uninsured was just a bit too time-consuming. After all, we had to reserve extra time to debate utilizing private school vouchers and permitless carry to arm third graders with bump stocks and semi-automatic weapons in an attempt to thwart illegal immigration along the border of Norman and Moore. I sat next to Proctor for 12 years. You get what you get. So since none of that was going to work, after much thought and deliberation, I settled on two things. In the remaining time that I have with you, I want to offer my sincere appreciation to those who played an important role in my life during this period. And then I'd like to leave you with a few lessons that I've learned. First things first, the thank yous. This job takes its toll on us as members, but no one pays the price quite like our immediate families. Being gone days and nights while we were in session and spending the summers and falls knocking doors to get reelected means someone else must pick up the slack. For me, that was my wife, Dessa. She supported me through my endeavors and allowed me to live my dream of serving in the legislature. It wasn't always easy, but she did it, and I'll owe her a debt of gratitude for the rest of my life. But the stresses of this life weren't borne by her alone. In the 12 years since I've been elected, we welcomed two of the most incredible, beautiful, and gifted little girls God has ever created. While Ella and Sophia are in school today, when they go back to watch this video this evening or maybe years from now, I want them to know that I love them with all of my heart. I fought to try to make Oklahoma a better place for them and their classmates. And I'm sorry for all the time that I've spent away from you, but I'm coming home soon, and I'll do my level best to make it up to you both. I couldn't be prouder of the young ladies that they're growing up to be, and while I always longed for the title of state representative, when they entered my life, I realized that the most humbling and amazing title that could ever be bestowed on me was to be called their daddy. Thank you, girls, for loving me and for always supporting me. I love you so much, and I always will. In addition to my immediate family, I must thank my mother and father, my dad's in the gallery this afternoon, for their unwavering support, even though my mother always hated politics and would regularly question my sanity when I expressed my love for it. I guess mothers really do know best. My sister Crystal and her husband Jeremy, and my nieces and nephew Cadence, Karis, and Kaysen, you guys have been truly a blessing to Dessa and me. To my sister-in-law, Jana, you are a rock for our family, and we couldn't have done it without you. And I want to thank my grandmothers, Olga Inman, my dad's mom, who since passed away, and Jean Bryant, who were my biggest campaign supporters over the years. I also want to thank all of those who worked on my first campaign, those who believed in me when others didn't. Jeremy Hendricks, Russell Griffin, and Ron Davis, my original campaign team. Eve Plant, Jim and Jimmy Nolan, Kay and David Bibbins, Dorothy Earls, Jackie Chavez, Rosalie Elliott, Wanda and Bobby Lucas, Marcy and Jerry Ellington, Steve Coleman, John and Yvonne Hirsch, Ted and Betty Barrett, Frank and Neva Hogue, and many more I'm unable to mention here. You helped make this blue-collar kid's dream come true. To all the LAs that I've worked with over the years, from Ray Denicky to Kyle Mead, to Jackie Walsh, to Audra Cross, to Whitley O'Connor, and to now Deborah Matthews. You all always made me look better than I really did, and you always took care of my constituents in a fair and respectful manner, even when they didn't always treat you the same way. We got a lot done over the years, and most of it was because of you. So to each of you, I thank you. To the policy directors who worked their tails off to make sure our team had the research and information we needed, even though they never been paid like a policy director and never were even allowed to have the title in the House, they kept us prepared. From my first, Valerie Owens, who was there as I took over as minority leader nearly 8 years ago, to Audra Cross and now Jackie Walsh, You ladies are the absolute best. I want to offer a special thank you as well to the media directors who've worked for me since I was elected leader. Mind you, just like our policy directors, they weren't allowed to have the title, nor were they compensated like other media professionals in the building, yet they did their job superbly. From Eric Russell and Eric Berger to our full-time bomb throwers, Mary Ann Martin, who's in the gallery, and Mike Ray. You all helped shape the voice of our caucus and thus the voice of millions of Oklahomans around some of the most consequential legislation of our day, and I'm truly grateful. To the House staff, to Jan and Emily and all the legal, fiscal, and research staff who either put up with me or made my life so much easier, I thank you so very much. To our parliamentarians, Joel Kinsel and now C.J. Caven, thank you, gentlemen, for always treating me with respect in class, even when my frustrations prohibited me from showing the same to you. But for the record, most of the time, you were wrong. It's in the rule book, C.J., just look it up. To the House Sergeants, and particularly Joe and Joe, Donnie and Dennis, Harvey and Ken Peeler back in the day, you guys are the best. And it's been my honor to call you friends, and I will miss each of you dearly. To the gentlemen I've had the pleasure to call Mr. Speaker, to Speaker Cargill and Speaker Benj, Speaker Steele, Speaker Shannon, Speaker Hickman, Speaker McCall, and Speaker Caldwell. Oh, wait, that didn't work out. For the record, Chad's not here, but for the record, Chad, it's okay. I ran against 4 of them, and I lost them all, so I feel your pain. But, I just thought, if I could pause for just a minute. I've been here for 12 years and served under 6 different speakers. I'm really glad you guys finally decided to settle on one there, because for a while, you guys were going through speakers like Mark McCullough goes through dry erase markers. To my leadership team, the men and women who stood by me over the last 8 years, helping to strategize and organize a caucus with the ultimate goal of moving our great state in a brighter and better direction, thank you all for your sacrifice and your friendship. To my caucus, a group of Oklahomans whom I believe comprise the best caucus in this building, there has been no higher honor for me in my professional life than to work alongside each of you and to have had the privilege of serving as your leader for 7 amazing years. Thank you for trusting me and for never forgetting who we were fighting for. You're all like family to me, even down to the cranky old uncle who at the Thanksgiving dinner table won't stop talking about the TLE, Ed Canada. And finally, to my constituents, the men and women and the children of House District 94 in Del City and South Oklahoma City, thank you for believing in me and giving me the chance to come to the Capitol each and every day to fight for the things important to our community. The privilege of being the first graduate of Del City High School to represent my hometown will always rank as one of the highest honors of my life. I'll never forget the kindness and generosity and support you showed my family and me. May God bless you always. Now, with the thank yous out of the way, I want to highlight a few of the lessons that I've learned from serving in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. First, thanks to Representative Mike Reynolds, who happens to be in the gallery, I learned that one man, driven and determined, can change the way a state budget has been done for decades. Watching Mike use the rules and procedures to effectuate change was at times frustrating and at times amusing, especially when he tied you guys into knots, but always instructive. I learned a great deal from him that if you know the rules and are willing to fight for what you believe, even if you're alone on an island, you can still make a difference. Thanks to Representative Richard Morissette, I learned that a Speaker Pro Tem can come darn close to breaking the gavel, and that our beloved sergeants like Joe in the back can move at an extra slow pace when asked to physically remove Richard from the chambers. For those of you who weren't here, the look on Joe's face as he slowly crawled up the aisle, looking at Richard Morissette, angry and yelling at Gus Blackwell, that look said, "Dear Lord Jesus, please either let Richard leave on his own or convince Gus to let him stay." Thanks to Representative Randy Terrell, I learned that it was possible for someone to love the television camera more than Richard Morissette. I also learned that we had to wait until Representative Terrell and Representative Christian left the legislature in order to celebrate Hispanic Cultural Day in Oklahoma. For the record, I think it was outlawed on page 86 of House Bill 1804. Thanks to Representative Charlie Joyner, I learned that you can insinuate on the floor of the House of Representatives that the top brass of the Oklahoma City Thunder apparently wanted us all to bend over and grab our ankles. He said it right over there. I didn't get that letter from Clay Bennett, but maybe Clay had Charlie's cell phone number. Who knows? Thanks to Representative Mark McCullough, I learned that angry, obsessive-compulsive, hyperactive, red-headed estate planning lawyers are just the absolute best to pick on the House floor. Nobody lost a bill like Mark McCullough. Thanks to Representative Ann Cootie, I learned that you could take some of the meanest and most pointed questions from members with whom you disagreed and still, in the classiest and most ladylike way possible, just lie through your teeth when you said, "Representative, I'm so glad you asked that question." Thanks to Bobby Cleveland, I learned that it is possible to be talking on the microphone with a hearing device on your ear, piping your own voice right back into your own head, and still not understand what in the world you're saying. And I also learned something new, Bobby. Is Bobby still here? There you are, Bobby. In 12 years, nobody has ever compared themselves to a constipated boar on the floor of the House of Representatives. So my hat's off to you, Bobby. Woo, it's taking it to a new level. Thanks to Representative Earl Sears, I learned that it doesn't really matter what language is in a bill as long as it is what it is, and it is what you have before you. Thanks to Representative Jerry McPeak, I learned that it's possible to slam the drawer in our desk hard enough to blow the front of it right off, because Jerry did that. Thanks to James Lockhart, I learned that you can charge the mound, otherwise known as the Speaker's chair, with a microphone in your hand, slamming it on the desk, yelling loudly, "You must recognize me!" And Representative Don Arms will miraculously not shoot you. Thanks to Representative Corey Williams, I learned that you can speak profanely into a live microphone on the House floor, and the press won't print a word of it so long as you allow Lockhart to charge the mound minutes after you utter such words. Thanks to Representatives Gary Bands and Mark McCullough and David Derby and Greg Pyatt, Charlie Joyner, Fred Jordan, Earl Sears, Randy McDaniel, Steve Vaughn, Fetgetter, and many more of you. I learned that while politics may divide us, friendships can transcend such divides and make for lasting relationships. Thanks to Representative Kevin Calving and Roger Ford, I learned that it's pretty special to serve with men with whom I've known for much of my life. Kevin was my Sunday school teacher, and I stayed at Roger's house with his son Matt all those years ago. You know what? It is special to be with somebody, even if you don't always agree with them, or even if, in the case of Kevin, ever agree with him. But it truly has been a pleasure. Thanks to Representative Jeannie McDaniel, I learned that hard work and principled approach to this job may not always make the next election any less challenging, but that it'll make putting your head on the pillow at night so much easier. I always said that if I could choose one representative with whom I'd serve to represent me in this building, it would be Jeannie, and they don't come any better than her. Thanks to Representative Cindy Munson, I learned that being a good person, thoughtful and considerate, and always being willing to face your constituents in an honest and forthright manner, even when they don't agree with you, will be rewarded with the respect of your constituents and most likely electoral success. Thanks to Representative Lucky Lammons, I learned to fight for what I believed in and to never give up. To that end, thanks to my caucus, I learned that if we stand together on principle with the facts to support our case and a willingness to be chastised and publicly criticized for what we believe, then great things can still be accomplished. The fight for a fair increase in the gross production tax and a balanced revenue package to better fund our schools and core services was won thanks to you. Thanks to your refusal to give up in the face of the weightiest of political pressures, Oklahoma will be a better state in the years to come. And while I've learned that lesson, my prayer is that you will heed it as well in the coming years and remember what is possible if we stick together. And also remember these wise words: never confuse the will of the majority with the will of God. Thanks to Representative Forrest Bennett and Representative Shane Stone, I learned that investing in bright young leaders years ago can pay off in spectacular ways. And I learned that as I leave this body in a day or so, our future is in good hands. Thanks to Representative Ben Shear and Representative Mike Shelton, I learned what real friendship was all about. Serving with you two gentlemen was an unbelievable opportunity, and my world has been diminished these last 2 years without you here by my side. Thanks to Representative Steve Copeland, my leader, I learned that two people from very different backgrounds can become incredible friends and learn to work together in a way to help lead a caucus to accomplish great things. Steve, 9 years ago, I had no intention of running for leader, but because of your encouragement and faith in me, and the fact that Corey Williams, Sam Buck, Dennis Bailey, Seneca Scott, and you really didn't know any better, I got to go on one of the greatest rides of my life. Thank you for always being there for me, and I wish you the very best as you lead our team to bigger and better things in the future. And finally, thanks to Representative Eric Proctor, my seatmate for the last 12 years, I learned what loyalty and friendship and humor and determination and fighting for the little guy were all about. When we first met each other at the Oklahoma Democratic Party in the summer of 2006, I never would have guessed that we'd spend more than a decade at each other's sides, working together to try to make a difference for working families in our state. But that's exactly what we've done. You've been a crucial influence in my life, both for good and bad. We've created a bond that I pray will last a lifetime. Together we help lead a caucus. Together we help set strategy and public policy for the betterment of our state. Together we fought some of the most powerful special interest groups in the world, and together we overcame seemingly insurmountable odds to achieve successes most thought we could never achieve. You're a wonderful person, legislator, husband, father, and friend. And I can say without reservation that this state and I personally am better because of you. And thanks to the tens of thousands of teachers who marched on this Capitol for 2 straight weeks in what was the largest show of political force in state history, I learned some issues transcend partisan politics, and that fighting for the kids in our public schools has helped to create an educated populace that now understands how this process works, warts and all, and will hopefully produce an army of advocates who will shape policy for the good for a generation to come. The kindness and support so many educators showed me, and the opportunity to visit with thousands of you each and every day, will serve as the biggest milestone of my legislative career. God bless you for what you do each and every day in your overcrowded and underfunded classrooms. Oklahoma's kids, my girls, will owe you a lifetime of gratitude. You know, in 12 years, I've learned that we should always treat each other fairly, and that while we may lock horns in heated questions and debates, we must always remember to fight the issues and not each other. There's not one bill that I've seen in my time here that would warrant the dissolution of a friendship. In 12 years, I've learned that not one vote out here will beat you. Heck, most voters don't even know what all goes on up here, but they know if you're available to them back home, and they can tell you if you've honored your word to them. So the next time you fret over a particular bill, just do what you think is right and have the courage to answer to your constituents in a fair and honest way. And in the last 6 months, I've learned what so many veteran members had told me over the years was absolutely true. In this job, you'll have a lot of people play nice to you, and they'll make you think that they're your friend. They'll take you to dinners, and they'll text you kind words of support and admiration, and then inevitably when the day will come, when you'll walk out of these doors for the last time as a state representative, many of those friends, they'll never talk to you again. They won't answer your calls. The texts will stop. You'll no longer be of use to them, and that'll be that. And while I hate that that is the reality we face, I know there's nothing we can do to change it. So what I've learned, and what I hope you would learn, is to be selective in your friendships. Deliberately value those who are true, and guard against those who only want to use you for their gain. I promise you'll be better for it. You know, on several occasions during my debates, I mentioned that my life verse is Proverbs 31:8. It reads, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, defend the rights of the poor and needy." I note that because in 12 years I've learned that there are no lobbyists for the store clerk who makes just above minimum wage. There are no government relations people for the single mom struggling to make ends meet for herself and her kids. I've learned the poor African-American kid in inner city Tulsa can't even afford the gas to get to this building to fight for a better future for himself or herself. I've learned the 85-year-old widow living below the poverty line on her meager Social Security income will never be able to write a big campaign check to influence a politician. And I've learned that if one of us doesn't speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves and defend the rights of the poor and needy, in this representative democracy intended to serve everyone, but which all too often only serves the powerful and elite, if one of us doesn't, then sadly no one else will. So I want to close by thanking all of you for an incredible 12 years and 45 minutes. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for the laughter and even the frustrations, for they made me better. Thank you for your friendships and for the kind words many of you have shared with me, both publicly and privately. Thank you for patiently listening to my debates, even when you fervently disagreed with me. Thank you for being there for me in tough times. And thank you for the forgiveness you've shown me when a question or a comment I made crossed the line. In the last few weeks, many of you wished me well in my future endeavors. Some even said you'd miss me and that you'd always remember this or that about our relationship or some debate I gave years ago. And I've been humbled and flattered by it all. But you know, in this world in which we work, it can easily become all about us, all about ego and prestige. Everyone, if they'd be willing to admit it, always wants to be remembered for something positive when they leave a job or even leave this world. And frankly, I'm no different. And I realize that when someone remembers the words or deeds of another, it's a form of honor and respect. But in the weeks and months and years to come, if you so have the inclination to honor me in some form or fashion, I'd ask this of you. Don't remember my words or my deeds. Instead, when the important issues of the day appear on that big board behind me, and you've got but 2 minutes to decide whether you'll press the green or the red button on your desk. In that moment, remember those less fortunate and less powerful than you, and then make a decision that will positively impact their lives. If you do that for me, I could think of no higher honor. I have loved this job, and I will miss it dearly, but I will miss you all even more. Thank you so very much for everything. May God bless and keep you always.